It's Tuesday, April 30th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And today on the daily chart, we end up with a 2 down red bar. We took out the low of the previous day. We held below the midpoint of the previous day. On the 2 down day, we moved to our first target down here. And then we continued lower and closed near the lows of the day, which we'll get to in a second. What this looks like now on the weekly chart is inside bar failure unfolding, where we take out the high of that bar and then come back through the midpoint of the range, which projects to the other end of the range. And we'll see if that develops, as the week moves on. Anytime I see an inside bar, any time frame, I'm always thinking failure. I mean, first, you're thinking it could be a breakout and it could hit its targets. But if it doesn't, there's always the possibility with inside price action that you could fail, and you're keeping an eye on that. And that's why today was a very pivotal day. I discussed on the recap video yesterday, after it kind of probed a little lower but held, that I was all prepared to, continue the buy side, because the week was a 2-up week. If we would have started above the midpoint of this day, if we would have started above the open of the week, if we would have went above the pre-market high, which is this blue line, then we certainly could have, continued with the 2-up week that had a target up to here to start and maybe higher. But instead, price action, as I'll show you, started lower, and in this case, it was a pinball effect where the opening price in the middle of the range, it broke to the downside. That triggered the 2 down day, which then followed through to its target, and then that target didn't hold, and then we are triggering the inside bar failure on the weekly chart to the downside until proven otherwise. So what's also interesting is the monthly chart's now over. April is done, and if you look at this bar, this is a pretty good looking red bar now. For a while it looked like we might close a little higher in here and had a buying tail, but to me now this bar kind of gives the expectation of testing those lows again. It's a red bar, and you would expect with this type of bar to at some point test the low of that into the next month. So we're going to get tomorrow the opening price of the month, and anything above that will temporarily have a green bar, and anything below that will be the red continuation. So we're going to see what that opening price is and kind of use that as a reference point. That will become more apparent, I think, on Thursday, really if we start up a little bit, we might come right back down through it. If we start down, we can, either continue or maybe come back up through it on Thursday. All of a sudden, we'll start to really see what's happening with the month. But given this bar here, I'm kind of anticipating the low being taken out now until proven otherwise. On the daily chart, you do expect a little follow through lower here on this red bar. But we're going to have a Federal Reserve announcement tomorrow, even though I think everyone knows what to expect. It's going to be more the comments afterwards that might lead to some volatility one way or the other. We'll find out. But, until we get it now on the daily chart, until something happens to get a 2-up day, which would kind of get the week back to green and everything else, and then obviously the month would end up green, for next month. I can't really get too excited about the buy side anymore, and if anything, it obviously looks like, we're getting to the bottom of that range, which could start the monthly chart, lower to take out its monthly low, and then there are all kinds of targets below. So that's kind of unfolding here, and again, coming into today, like I said, I was biased to the upside. I certainly would have went to the buy side if price would have started that way. But if we look at the 15-minute price action, price started out in the middle of the pre-market range here between the blue lines, green bar. I was waiting for that breakout to the upside. It never happened. Then we broke down. I think you could have bought puts here, but whatever. I was trading some other stocks at the time, and still it was still within the first bar range. And all of a sudden, it's an hour and 15 minutes into trading, and nothing's happening relative to that first bar, and you're right in the middle of a range, and you're right in the middle of this whole big range for the last few days. So it's not like I was that excited. I wanted to see what would happen. Once I saw it come up and fail here, I bought some puts right here at the red line, as I discussed on the video. You can go look at it. And obviously it moved down. I scaled out, set up a no-risk trade. And for the rest of the day, then it met its target here, the daily target on the yellow line. It kind of held in there, had an orderly pullback, and then a big push down. So it was down all day long. Very clear trading in terms of where price action went right from the open. Once you kind of saw it wasn't moving up, you're still below the open of the week, which was here all session long. So the short-term continuity was to the downside, and then once it broke to the downside, however you wanted to play it, you got all that follow through, and you just kind of watched it, not giving any reversal in any way, shape, or form back to the upside, like it kind of did yesterday, when it took out some liquidity. Where was that? yesterday right here at the end and then pop back up strongly. You didn't see any of that at all. So that's how we end the month with a big red bar. We'll see what happens. Like I said, it's gonna be a little tricky tomorrow, I think, with the Federal Reserve, waiting for their announcement and their comments afterwards and how that's going to affect things. Anything's possible as always, but until we get a 2-up day now in some form, and it'll be the first day of the month. I'm not going to get too excited on the buy side, but it is possible. This was just a one-day event, and who knows? Maybe within 3 days to go, we get a strong up move for some reason, and before you know it, we just held the midpoint of this weekly bar. We get back above the open, and we start hitting those targets. But that's not the expectation. Just like today, the expectation was maybe to go higher, but that changed once we watched price action, and that's why this whole, at least my trading plan, kind of integrates a lot of things together, and then you kind of get a feeling what's unfolding. So we're going to be biased to the downside now. Tomorrow could be a tricky day in terms of volatility in the afternoon. We'll see how every Federal Reserve kind of affects price action, but I don't trade during that period, but often there's a pretty clear signal afterwards to take. And early in the morning, there could be trades that work out well, even though everyone's waiting for the announcement. So we'll see what happens. But for now, let's just go with the fact that it's a weekly failure unfolding to the downside. Monthly chart looks like it wants to test lower. We'll see what happens. And if it comes down and takes out that low, then maybe at some point, we get back through the open sometime in May, and then we can come back all the way through the range. But that's assuming we get lower here. Then you got to get through that open in order to feel comfortable that price is now moving up again. So we'll see really what unfolds day by day in the next month. But certainly it almost looks like this was kind of a a downward move here on the weekly chart, a little inside price action, and then kind of the classic it could almost be a 2-1, 2 up, 2 down to continue that trend to the downside. And we never really got that weekly chart reversing to the upside. As I was always talking about, for a while on this downward move, I want to see that weekly chart reverse up. This was the first sign, the inside bar, that it might have followed through. But since it's not doing that, I sense that this downtrend now is still in force, and things can go a lot lower. But let's, as always, see what happens day by day. And today was very clear to the downside, on the SPY, breaking through the first bar low, and then you can see what happens after that. So again, tomorrow midweek, let's just see if the follow through to the downside continues.